Hey there, spooky friends, and welcome to another episode of the Scaryish podcast.
Woo.
This week, I'm Robin Grace, this is Adam Diaz.
Hello.
And we cover random, topics, whether that be true crime, hauntings, paranormal things. But this week, we are doing something that I'm sure everyone is sick of hearing about.
Way to pitch it, Robin. Very well done.
We're doing stuff about the eclipse, right? Eclipses in general, not this particular eclipse.
Yeah, just in general, we're kind of a little bit tired this week. I will say this is how it's been, all right? It's Tuesday. It's already been a really long week. So we are traveling tomorrow. We're going on a little trip, which is cool. But we did have to try and cram as much of a full week's worth of work into 2 days between the two of us at both of our respective jobs. And yeah, that was a little bit exhausting to say the very least. So yeah, we decided rather than having a normal topic episode, we're going to do something just a little different, might be a little shorter. I know we've had some long episodes for the last few. So maybe welcome to some folks. Maybe everyone's going to be like, no, we like the long ones. Who doesn't? Am I right, ladies? Wink wonk. But seriously, we wanted to have one topic that we could both talk to you guys about. We can more or less have a discussion rather than it being an education session about some horrific ghoul or...
Yeah, it's going to be more of us just, our thoughts on different things and talking back and forth.
Specific to the eclipse, maybe not the one that just occurred, but eclipses in general. But yeah, before we dive into the main topic, Robin, how's your week been? Has it been good?
It's just busy. We're trying to get through this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Past 7 days have been busy. The weekend was fun. We went to Disneyland, which was super dope.
Yeah.
We got to meet some new friends, which was very exciting. Everyone was delightful, and I had a really good time.
Adam's like, I need to make friends with these people.
They were
so
all
nice.
very, very nice and very funny. It was very refreshing to just meet a group of really nice people that I've never met before, and yeah, we did a lot of the rides that I just love to do, which was super fun. We stayed until the fireworks show, which we don't
do very often.
We hadn't seen the new one.
Yeah, I definitely cried at the new fireworks show.
It's very good. Yeah, I was very impressed. Disneyland, you're doing a great job since Robin left. Still holding the ship together. I know she ran most of it, but yeah.
Shut up, you're so stupid.
It was a really fun trip. I had a really, really fun Saturday. Sunday, I definitely was exhausted. I was like, oh man, I haven't walked.
Oh yeah, I felt like I died.
Yeah, it wasn't like our normal full day excursion, rope drop to close, but we were at it. We were walking the whole day until we got to dinner time, which was at 8-ish, I think. When we finally sat down, I was like, okay, cool, yeah. My feet are definitely feeling it. So it was good. And then Sunday was, let's rest up a little bit day. Monday was tons and tons of work. The solar eclipse happened. The Cubs blew an 8-run lead. They're up 8-0 and blew that. And Purdue blew it out their ass too. So my alma mater couldn't pull off the national championship win. So Monday wasn't that good of a day. So it's unfortunate. But hey, there was a solar eclipse. So that's cool. But yeah, it's been a fun last 7 days since we talked to you. But yeah, we're going to do this one topic, no super specific research, just some fun examples here and there. And who knows, if we enjoy doing this, maybe we'll do it in the future every now and then. So could be fun. But here, where we live on planet Earth, we just had a total solar eclipse yesterday on April 8th, 2024. And although there's a bunch of different types of eclipses, there's lunar eclipses, partial eclipses, stuff like that. The total solar eclipse is the one where if you hear the word eclipse, it's probably the picture that you get in your mind's eye,
I just am imagining the cover of the book by Stephanie Meyer.
I hate you so much. I have seen so many memes since the eclipse happened, and most of them have that stupid book involved in it.
Hell yeah.
And my favorite ones are the ones where it's I got really nauseous looking at the eclipse today, and then it shows the book, and they're like, woo. So I was appreciative of those. For me, every time I hear eclipse, what I think of is the TV show Heroes. Which, as anyone who was alive and watching it when it first launched, I think it was 2005, maybe?
The O in Heroes is an eclipse.
What?
The O in Heroes.
Is the eclipse.
Is the eclipse.
Which is tied to the first episode. The eclipse happens and a bunch of these people get their powers. The first season was very, very exciting. Lots of people were watching it. The writer's strike back then, the older writer's strike happened. Peter Petrelli got a girlfriend who he abandoned in an alternate timeline that they never went back to. And speaking of threads they never went back to, before the show got canceled after 4 seasons, you never find out why they got their powers during the eclipse. And if you did, I forgot because I watched every single episode of that show hoping for it to get better, and it really just died after season 1, which was unfortunate. It limped along for as long as it could.
Did it have like a comeback season at all? Like they cancel it and then another person picked it up? Oh,
no one picked
sad.
it up after they canceled it. Season 2 was just like jarring to everyone how much it just felt different. It wasn't fun, and like it just lost that vibe. Season 3 was when everyone turned on it, and like people started like just not watching it and talking shit about it the whole time. And then they brought back like the original showrunner who was doing Pushing Daisies at the time. And he started writing for it again. And like in one episode, he pointed out in a very meta way characters who had been behaving in odd ways. Like, I don't know why I've been doing this for the last like 2 years. Or like people being like, why are we even in love? We just met and decided we should be in love because we heard we were supposed to be in love in the future. That makes no sense. And like, it was a fun episode for him to wrap up threads to sort of like get rid of some characters and delete some storylines. But by then the damage had been done. So yeah, it definitely didn't survive. And I think that was back in the time where there wasn't enough streaming services to give a show a second life. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
Nowadays, it's way more commonplace.
People just do like, save this, save that.
Yeah, those things work a lot better. And like something like Brooklyn Nine-Nine that went from Fox to, I think, NBC. That one didn't go to streaming services, but actually stayed on like network television. That was definitely much more rare back in the day. But anyways, talking about the actual eclipses, yeah, we had one yesterday. And if you don't know what an eclipse is, it's what happens when every now and then I get a little bit lonely and you're never coming around.
Is that part of a song that's called Eclipse or something?
Yeah, turn it around. Bright Eyes. It's Total Eclipse of the Heart. I can't believe you don't recognize that song.
The only part I know about Total Eclipse of the Heart is Total Eclipse of the Heart.
That's it? That's the only part you recognize?
Yeah.
All right. Well, I'm glad that I could expand your horizons with this episode so far. So seriously, let's talk about it. So, as far as it goes, like, I acknowledge eclipses are cool. I understand why people are enthusiastic about eclipses. I am not the type of person who is going to drive to the path of totality unless it's a little bit closer, which for us, it was not very close to get to.
My boss literally drove to Illinois to go see it. And the pictures from that are they're amazing. They're absolutely amazing.
And was he in the path of totality though? Because I know Illinois was kind of like a little bit further off.
If you see the picture, it's like the entire thing was covered. You just saw it looked like the O in Heroes.
We will post a picture of the path as well, because I actually am not super familiar with it because I saw a bunch of fucking fake ones, which we'll get to later. But yeah, like. I get it. Like everyone else that I kind of know in the region that I'm from, which is Northwest Indiana, adjusted themselves. I shouldn't say everyone, but a bunch of people like adjusted their day on Monday so that they could at least go outside and spend some time and check this thing out. You know what I mean? So it was something that was kind of momentous. For the same like point, it's like in 2017, I think we had one that people could go up to Oregon and watch it, and a bunch of people went up there for that. So it's not like a total solar eclipse is something that's never happened in my lifetime. But it was one that I was just like, I'm not going to make that drive to see it.
Yeah.
But I was very delighted to see all the pictures that people posted and stuff like that. Because it looks super fucking cool. Like it's really impressive.
It was really cool to, out here in Southern California, we didn't get the entirety. I think we got like 60% or something like that.
Right.
And even that was really cool to go outside, take a minute or two. I think we took way longer than that, maybe like 5 minutes.
Well, you're government workers.
Oh, no. But we went outside and we're trying to use, I think only our friend Jess had the solar eclipse glasses. So
right.
We're all just like handing this single pair of glasses around. But it was really cool to kind of see this little nail clipping out of the sun.
Yeah, seeing the sun go dark, you know, and if you're in the path of totality, which is what they call it when 100% of the sun gets blocked out, kind of, there's still like that ring of fire around it, so to speak. Like it's pretty cool. You have to have those glasses, like you mentioned, that look like the 3D glasses from the 1980s.
Yeah, it is insane how much light those things block out.
Yeah.
And all you see is that orange circle of the sun. It's so cool.
The entire time I kept imagining like a scummy CEO that runs like paper frame divisions across the country, like trying to pitch like to people like, as you can see in the month of March, in the month of April, our sales went through the roof. So we're projecting a really big 2024. And it's like trying to pretend like it didn't have anything to do with the solar eclipse. Like it just like kept popping into my head where it's just like this, there's someone out there trying to pretend like these numbers aren't inflated by the eclipse and like trying to pitch like 3D technology must be making a comeback. But anyways, so one of the things that I want to talk about before we get into too much of this is that the next solar eclipse I keep hearing about is supposed to take place in 2044.
Yeah, in 20 years from now.
Yeah, 20 years from now it's supposed to take place, and it's supposed to be visible. The path of totality is supposed to hit Western Canada, Montana, and North Dakota. So if you're planning a trip, you better book your Airbnb way far in advance.
How do they calculate the path of this thing?
I mean, the sun, the moon, and the earth are some things that we have kind of constant monitoring of.
Yeah.
And, if you can actually decide, I shouldn't say decide, but if you can determine, okay, we go around the sun, the moon goes around us, and do some math, you can figure out like how long until this happens again.
Oh, that's the problem for me. I don't do math.
The math part. Yeah, definitely. But I should point out that I really think that my view of things and a lot of other people's view of things is very America-centric. Like everyone's like, there will not be another solar eclipse in your lifetime unless you live to 2044. So yeah, you're totally right. Or unless you fucking move, because in 2033, there's a total solar eclipse that goes over Alaska. And guess what? In 2026, there's one that goes over Greenland, Iceland, and Spain, which are all places people go and fucking live. So it's like, it's like a very U.S. thing to say like, oh, this is the last one we're going to have in like 20 years. Like, no, not necessarily. It's the last one that's convenient for, the people of America to see. The North American continent still going to be getting them, and the world at large will still be getting total solar eclipses, albeit not super frequently. So just putting that out there in case you want to plan a trip to Spain in the next 2 years, you might see another total solar eclipse.
Let's freaking go.
My mom went. She loved it. She went and she had a great time.
I just imagine the food is amazing.
Oh, yeah, dude. I would fucking love to go. 100%. So let's talk about an eclipse, okay? Like what is actually happening for a total solar eclipse? So we're not going to go into the things that people thought it was. In this portion of the show, we'll talk about it in the future in this episode. But like what is actually happening is the moon goes in front of the sun. So it's just where you're standing as this tiny little speck on this big old planet. There is the moon between you and the sun directly. And if you're in the path of totality, it's just so perfectly done that it completely blocks out the sun and it basically turns day into night.
And I believe we saw the planets that are around it too. I don't remember which planets your mom told me they were that you could see. They looked like stars.
It was Jupiter and Venus
and
that
they
they thought they saw. Yeah, because it gets so dark outside that you can see those things actually in the sky.
Yeah.
So that's another part that we'll go ahead and
Did you go outside to look at them? Well, you didn't have any glasses to go
No,
look.
but I did this thing where I stood under the awning outside and I put my phone out from under the awning and I zoomed in. So I wasn't looking at the sun. I was looking at my phone that was looking at the sun.
Okay.
And I zoomed in super close. Did not work at all. It was just like, it's weird to say like, this is how it was for me with no equipment. It was bright and dark. Because it was like bright to look at, but it was kind of dim outside. And I was like, oh man, do I have to turn on the lights inside the house? I was like, oh yeah, there's an eclipse today. So no, I didn't really get to see it, but I was like, I'll live vicariously through others. But like, what sort of things actually occur that freak people out about an eclipse? So the first thing that is notable that has been talked about for the longest time since we started recording total solar eclipses is there's a temperature drop, which I wouldn't think would scare people. It makes sense if the sun goes away that the temperature is going to drop, similar to what we know commonly as nighttime, which happens every now and then.
So every now and then I get a little bit. So it was 3 minutes long. I think the total eclipse was 3 minutes long. I can't imagine.
Well, you mean like the totality or whatever? Yeah. The event? Like it began at like 11:15. I think it was over at like 12:50 our time or something like that.
It was really fast.
Yeah, but the actual like the big show where like you're waiting to see it, that's like that's only 3 minutes long.
I can't imagine how much the temperature actually drops in that amount of time. I mean, if it's 60 outside, is it just going to be 55?
Well, they say that it drops depending on which eclipse you're talking about. You can see a temperature drop of like 10 to 25 degrees Fahrenheit, which is it's a substantial difference, you know? It's not like going from the sun to the shade during the day. It is just generally like going from the day to the night. Like when you see like, you know, if you're checking the forecast for tomorrow, you see a high and a low, they're generally like 20, 25 degrees difference.
Yeah.
That's essentially what happens.
It's like a little high, a little low.
Yeah. Thank you. I don't know what that is about. Those lyrics that I'm not picking up on.
Little high, little low.
Okay. You've gone to a completely different song. We're doing Bohemian Rhapsody now. But it's like the earth itself in the path of totality is still retaining heat because it was just being touched by the sun. Mr. Sun was just beaming down its bright sunshiny rays on us.
Wait, okay. This whole entire episode, is it going to be a musical? Kind of like how every single movie has to be a flipping musical now?
No, I wasn't trying to do any other songs than the one I already quoted. So if you're trying to convert my normal speaking into lyrics, then that's on you, bro.
Okay.
We haven't even watched, at least I haven't watched the Joker 2 trailer yet, so I'm not familiar.
I haven't either.
I just know it's supposed to be a musical, and that's just blowing my fucking mind. But
I just know Mean Girls got turned into a musical, and that's so upsetting.
But anyways, the 10 to 25 degrees is straight up just from the sun being blocked out. Like, if the sun is actually not shining on you, that's how much of a temperature drop that you can expect to feel in that instant of like, the moon's in front now, I'm kind of cold. So there's a bunch more stuff that happens. Like, I know you have some stuff that you had gone over that happens during a total solar eclipse too.
Yeah. So people were bringing up radio disruptions, like signal disruptions. Our internet at work went out for a little bit. I don't think it had anything to do with it.
But you never know, right?
But you never know. Different things happen. So apparently there's something, you know, called the ionosphere surrounds the planet, and our radio waves bounce off of that. So people try to
stay inside, right? Like that's how the waves work, is they bounce around.
Yeah. And so apparently when the sun gets blocked like that, it does something to it, and so it affects the radio waves some way. I'm obviously not a scientist. I don't know. But
I think it has something to do with reduced solar radiation, but not 100% on that. I've heard of this before though. Like you get static, you get interruption, you get drop calls and shit like that. As technology has advanced, there's just newer things that get disrupted by eclipses that we're just like, oh shit, it fucks with that too.
Like my day.
Yeah. Jesus. It's like everyone's day was interrupted. The other thing that I read about is like animals get really weirded out, which isn't shocking. Animals like kind of like live and breathe off of a day-night cycle. They don't understand the concept of what time it is, like how we measure time.
Yeah.
So to them, like there is no daylight savings time. Like that's why they get kind of weirded out when daylight savings time hits in the United States, where it's like they're used to a parent getting home right around the time it's getting dark or right after it gets dark, you know, and then all of a sudden in the blink of an eye, it's like, oh no, it's gotten dark and mom and dad aren't home yet. What's going on? And they start getting really stressed out. Similar thing, if they're used to the sun being out and then suddenly the sun is gone, they're like, wait, am I supposed to be in night mode right now? The one animal that I read about that really does it right is the Galapagos turtles, or excuse me, the Galapagos tortoises. Because it's been observed multiple times during total solar eclipses for these fucking turtles that as soon as the sun goes away and it's dark, they just start having sex.
No, they don't.
Totally true.
I don't believe
100% scientifically documented. And I'm like, it may be the turtles thing, like, it's the end. Let's fucking do this. And it's just a giant turtle orgy.
No, it's not.
Not even making this up. It's 100% true. So,
oh, God.
You already brought up the stars, the planets being visible, but the other thing I wanted to mention, which I should have mentioned with the temperature drop, is because the surface of the planet where the sun is no longer touching changes so rapidly because it's no longer exposed, the winds change. And this was something that was thought to be a rumor for a long time, or a myth. And in 2015, they studied it specifically and they found out like, oh no, like straight up because the massive temperature drop happens just out of the blue, the winds stop moving the same way. In most cases, they just sort of like shift or even reverse the direction that they're going because the ground temperature has a lot to do with how wind moves.
It was very windy today, I will say that. I don't know if it had anything to do with the eclipse.
I'm simply talking about during the eclipse and not like a day after. So who knows? That might be another symptom. But like, can you imagine like just stepping outside, seeing all the pictures that people are showing, what it must have felt like in like ages past in mankind's history? Because you can't see like that ring, but what you can see is that the sun, when you know the sun is out, has gone away and the sun has just become black. You don't necessarily even know at that time there's something blocking the sun. You might just straight up think like, oh, the sun's mad right now, you know?
If only they could just whip out their iPhones and just zoom in.
I mean, you have to have glasses in front of the thing, and they didn't make those glasses way long ago. So I
There's
mean, iPhones have been around since.
I have a picture that Jess took of our coworkers trying to take a picture,
It's such a good picture
of the eclipse, and they're like putting the glasses over a camera, but one has to hold the glasses, the other one's holding the camera. It's just trying to take pictures of this is hilarious. But I can't imagine what it must have been like when you have no technology and you know, fire is new.
Yeah. It's like that's your main technology is like, oh, we can start things on fire now. It's super dope. Like there were civilizations back then that like knew things that could study like the things that were happening around them, but even then people still got scared.
A lot of ancient cultures had this strange understanding of science. People like the ancient Mayans created the Mayan calendar, you know, it's something that...
And they were supposed to be like major astronomers and mathematicians, so they understood like the cycle of shit.
Right. But these Mayans, I mean, I think we know the sacrifice type side of the Mayans and things like that, but when it came to eclipse events, they kind of related those to death and misery and bad things. It was not a good sign to have an eclipse happen.
It's like a straight up bad omen. Like, they don't, like, look at eclipse as a good thing. Like, similar stuff that happened in, like, Europe and India and Indonesia and, like, BC times is, like, they just straight up thought a monster was attacking the sun. And they would go out into the streets and, like, shout at the sky and, like, hurl rocks to try and protect the sun and, like, scare it away.
You know, people still go out during tornadoes and hurricanes and shoot at them. So I
mean, people in general for a long time have been stupid. But in this case, I think they just legitimately didn't know what was happening. Like, you know what a tornado is nowadays. You know, you're not like, oh my God, it's a monster. I got to shoot it to get it to go away. It's just that people like shooting guns and being dumb nowadays. But like in these different cultures, like these people were legitimately scared. It makes me laugh though, because it's like you're throwing a rock and clearly watching it fall out of the sky and back down to earth.
Yeah.
Knowing you didn't reach the sun, but like people just kept fucking doing it.
People in China would... Going back to how people these days still shoot guns and things at tornadoes, people in China would think that the sun went out. So they would light arrows and shoot them at the sun, hoping they would relight the sun.
I mean, I'm not going to say it's dumb because it feels very proactive. And like, it's also very interesting that they thought like the sun was fire before they could actually confirm that it was a giant ball of fire, essentially, that keeps everyone warm, where they're like, oh shit, it went out. Everyone shoot fire arrows at it. It's kind of genius.
It's, I guess, it's just very, one of those superstition type things where you're like, I have to do this.
It's so funny to me because like in Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time, the way to get the fire arrows is to shoot a regular arrow at the sun. And during like dawn over the lake, like you shoot an arrow at the sun. And like there's a poem that's like, at first light, fire at the da-da-da-da-da. It's some poem that tells you basically like, shoot an arrow at the sun to get the fire arrows.
Is the sun only like 50 feet away?
No, like it doesn't go to the sun and then come back. It freezes at a certain spot on its path and turns into fire arrows and then like falls down onto this platform that you go
I've obviously never played this game, guys.
So awesome. Ocarina of Time is a fucking masterpiece. So they were clearly playing this in like ancient China because it was so good.
You're obviously the Legend of Zelda person. I'll stick to like Pokemon and Animal Crossing.
It's a title that I take with honor, being called the Legend of Zelda person, so I will accept that. So I'm going to get to some specific examples now. Like 585 BC, there was a war going on in eastern Turkey. Of course, back then, they still didn't really know what an eclipse was, and it was kind of frightening. So despite the fact that there was two warring factions literally engaged in battle at the time that a solar eclipse happened, and they were in the path of totality, they were all so freaked out by the omen or just general fear of what was happening, they stopped fighting in the short amount of time that eclipses last. Like we just said, like a full eclipse lasts like 3 minutes, you know? And they made peace, like, on the battlefield. Wow. They were just like, the gods don't want us to fight, guys. Like, this is a fucking sign. We need to stop. And they laid down their arms, and that was the end of that conflict.
Wow.
They're just like, no, we're done. Like, everyone good? You good? We're good. Okay, everyone's good. If the generals wants to fight, tell them to eat shit and die. The sun went out, okay? Like, the gods are not happy right now. And, like, similar, like, 1,000 years later, maybe 1,100, 1,200 years later, in 632 AD, Ibrahim, who is the Prophet Muhammad's son, he died right around the time a solar eclipse happened as well, like a total solar eclipse in that area. So that entire culture, that entire belief structure, very quickly around that time decided like total solar eclipses are 100% a bad thing. Because like this person that we revere and love died when this happened.
You could say there was a total eclipse of his heart.
Wow. Yeah, I guess you could say that.
So on August 2nd, 1133, King Henry I actually died after an eclipse happened. So people started thinking eclipses just meant bad omens for all these rulers and anyone in power. So I think there's reasons why people think it's a bad thing.
Oh yeah, for sure. It's like, yeah, it makes sense that there's like these, I guess I can call them coincidental deaths of these very notorious, or I guess notorious is kind of a bad word, but these very famous people happening. So, massive differences in time, 632 to 1133, 500 years or so. But like two notable people dying around total solar eclipses, different cultures completely just deciding like these are bad things. But some folks, like, they don't view eclipses as a bad thing, whether they're just straight up optimistic or they just want to have like a different way of thinking of things. Like Australian Aborigines, they believe that the sun is actually a woman carrying a torch, and they consider the moon to be a male, which is like the partner to the sun. And an eclipse was interpreted as they finally got to meet in the sky. And it's basically like, it was viewed as like fertility time. Like, if the moon covers the sun and everything goes dark, it's because they have entered the bone zone.
Oh my god.
Which I think is super cool, actually. Like, I'm not saying that just to be funny, but it's very optimistic, and I like the idea of like these two literal star-crossed lovers that barely ever get to come together, finally meeting in the sky, and everyone being like, yeah, get it done. It's cool to me. I think that's great.
I don't know how you would relate those things, you know?
What do you mean? Like,
it's
if you
not
think
my
one's
culture,
a man
so I don't know.
Well, if you think one's a man, it's not my culture either, but if you think one's a man and one's a woman, and they finally overlap, and this just bizarre thing that never happens, like,
why does it equate to bone zone?
what else would it equate to? Like, they finally were on top of one another, and they're just like, yes, finally.
Technically, they're just in front of one another.
You don't know that, though. They did not know this. They knew that these things coincided and overlapped, and they celebrated it as a good thing. And they're not alone. Like, German mythology had the same general idea of like whether or not they switched the genders and the sun was a man and the moon was a woman, which is very, very common, very frequent thing. They associated eclipses with fertility. Some Native American tribes did it as well. West African tribes, Tahitians also thought that. Like, these folks were just like, I think it's basically just places where people like to bone, or maybe where they knew about the Galapagos turtles, where they're like, yeah, those turtles are onto something. But like, they just celebrated eclipses, and they thought it was something that was like to be celebrated, which I think is more in line with how we handle things nowadays, but not necessarily, because like, as times have come along and folks have really started to understand like the patterns of the stars and like things that we can observe, like Galileo and him figuring out like how things worked, and the rejection of the Earth-centric like solar system model where everything revolves around us. As that sort of started to change, we started to take on a new understanding. People were able to like start predicting these things. And because of that, when things are more predictable, there's less fear associated with them, you know?
And people take advantage of the fact that there are other cultures that don't know, that don't,
For sure.
they're not the ones predicting it, right? So, March of 1504, Christopher Columbus tries to take advantage of the fact that he knows a solar eclipse is coming. So he goes to the Jamaicans and he's like, hey, you're going to do this for me, or bad things are going to happen.
Where the Jamaicans like, get fucked, like, leave our island.
So they're just like, no, we're not going to. Then the solar eclipse happens, and then they all start showing up with food and stuff for him. Like,
so they thought like, oh, this is punishment because he didn't follow his orders. What a piece of shit.
I mean, everyone knows Christopher Columbus was a piece of shit.
I mean, if you're still holding a flag for Christopher Columbus, just Google Christopher Columbus 12-year-olds and you'll probably delete that thought in your head.
12-year-olds.
So. He wrote this letter to the Queen when he found like
the
New
I don't
World.
even want to hear anymore.
I think it was the Queen of Spain. He wrote this letter and it was just like describing all the ample resources they have. And one of the things that he described was like 11 to 12-year-old females that could be sold into sex trafficking.
Disgusting.
Yeah, there's a lot of horrid things with Christopher Columbus. So the fact that this was kind of like a way for him to manipulate people, it's not very shocking to me at all.
All right. So even these days, people act really strange during times of an eclipse.
I believe it.
I mean, you've seen the internet this week, okay? You've
seen
a lot
your
of
weird
stuff.
aunt posting some crazy shit on Facebook.
In 1991, in Baja California, there was a hotel where the staff were so overcome with fear, and they were crying and just wailing, and like really all the hotel staff were just freaking out.
In 91. When I was 6 and you were 2.
Dude,
people were still afraid of the eclipse.
We have somebody who comes in to work with us every once in a while, and he was saying, while you guys were in diapers and doing stuff, I was here working. And I was like, there's no way. You're not that old. There's no way. He's like, I started here in 1990. What were you doing in 1990?
You were in diapers.
I was like, I was one.
That's so funny,
I was
dude.
like, no. But it was just so freaking funny. Anyway, for me, people at work were saying that in their culture, you're not supposed to go outside.
I've heard so many people say that you're not supposed to look at it and you're not supposed to be outside for it. I had people at work also tell me, like, I didn't go outside yesterday for that exact reason.
Yeah. I had, all my friends are coworkers, all right? I'm at work all the freaking time. But one of them was like, I went out and did a bunch of errands. But then I talked to my grandma or whatever, and I wasn't supposed to go outside because it's just a cultural thing. Like, it's bad luck to go outside.
I wonder if we've
eclipse.
ever covered like this as part of a superstition category. I don't remember doing it. But like, I should also mention too, like you were saying, contemporary times people act crazy still. Like
just like the full moon
in 1995. I mean, even more so. This is a full moon blocking out the full sun, so people are like fucking A. But in 95 in Cambodia, soldiers there became convinced that one of the old myths about solar eclipses being a dragon actually attempting to eat the sun was true. And that myth equates the fact that if this is happening, soldiers need to fight off the dragon in order for the sun to come back. So when the eclipse started to happen, they freaked the fuck out. And a bunch of these guys just started shooting their guns into the air at the sun until the eclipse ended, which can take some time. And in that region, there were people that died from stray bullets as a result.
Again, people still shoot at things they shouldn't shoot at.
100%.
It's just something that humans do for some freaking reason.
It's so bad that when you mention shooting at a tornado, I'm like, what stupid bullshit. I really hope they tested it, though, because I wonder what happens to a bullet when you shoot it into a tornado.
It just goes faster or something, or
but
what?
Like, will it like get caught up in the revolution? Will it go through it? Will it get slowed down? Who knows? I gotta fucking Google
because
it
it's
now.
so tiny, right? But then it would probably get caught up in.
Well, spoiler alert for the movie Twister, where they're trying to get Dorothy to unleash her seed into the tornado, the sensors or whatever. If they would have just made them bullet size and shot them into the tornado, the movie would have been over. So, anyways, let's just keep moving forward on this and get towards wrapping it up. So, this eclipse. Let's talk about this eclipse and the fact that it was, in all honesty, no different than the ones in the past. In fact, it's some of the ones in the far past it was no different from, because lots of folks had plenty of theories on what was going to unfold.
Oh, yeah.
Like, some crazy shit got spewed out there. I normally don't dip into conspiracy theories. We're just going to wade into those waters just a little bit to let you know what was out there. So the first one, we'll get to that. I saved that one for last, or second to last. The first one is that the path of totality, as it progressed along the map, essentially would be raging thunderstorms.
Okay.
Like, it would just generate these horrible thunderstorms that were going to just flatten cities. There was going to be something that we have never seen before, which is funny because I just covered hurricanes. So if it would have happened, I would have been like, oops, Adam's a prophet again.
I hear Austin was cloudy.
But that is, it obviously didn't happen, but a lot of people became convinced. This was another reason people were saying that you need to stay inside. Some people waited out the eclipse in their storm shelters that were like really scared about this, or were told to, like, straight up. They're just like, better safe than sorry. Another one I heard was that the governments of the world were going to use the path of the solar eclipse, which if you see like memes online of the amount of like hotels and Airbnbs that got booked for the day that the solar eclipse was happening, like, and you see the frequency they were booked, like the path around the world that it took is just like highlighted in red because everyone booked like everything that was completely booked.
Post it.
If I can find the thing, I will post it. Also, dabble in another conspiracy theory really quick. If you want to see the path of totality and get it confirmed by just the people who were in it and how it just like goes up the world at an angle and then down the world at an angle, the reason, if you're looking at a flat map, that it has that sort of shape to it, like that curve, It's because the Earth's fucking round and it went in a straight line. And when you unravel a round thing and look at the path, it's not a straight line because it's been an unwrapped fucking sphere. So flat earthers are going to have to ignore those maps or else your head's going to fucking explode.
Oh, man.
But yeah, this whole path of totality and everyone cramming in there to watch it was going to be the best stage that could possibly be done for this government, New World Order. There's another word they use from globalists, I think, to unleash their new pandemic to control the population. I didn't see a specific name. I figured it'd be called COVID-20 because that's just like the naming convention where you just give it a +1. But
I was like, but it's 2024. Oh, no, wait.
If Microsoft was in charge of the new pandemic, it would be, COVID 360 or COVID Series X because they can't figure out their naming convention for shit. But I really thought you'd think that was a funnier joke.
I am a big Xbox person. # rude.
They need to get a better naming convention. PlayStation was just like, okay, what are we going to call the second one? PlayStation 2. And then fast forward 30 years, like PlayStation 5. And everyone's like, cool, this works for us. Well, no one is confused.
They had the PSP and then the million iterations of the PSP.
Portable.
And then they had the PS Vita.
Portable again. I'm talking about the main console has always been called the 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5.
What about Nintendo?
Nintendo has the stupid naming conventions too. The entire Wii U generation was deleted because people thought it was just a big fucking controller for the Wii. And that's on them. Let's keep going though. Speaking of Nintendo Wii U, a lot of people thought the end times were among us because there was this completely predictable and scheduled solar eclipse happening. Sitting members of the U.S. Congress actually tweeted out that it was a sign from God that America needs to repent. Go figure, something that was 100% planned would be interpreted as religious and spoken of despite the fact that there's a separation of church and state in our country. Thought it was very interesting that they decided to, of course, make it religious and political, but what can't be made religious and political nowadays? So that was fucking annoying. There was also this thing about how there was this negative energy that was going to be injected into the path of totality because of the darkness that was there. There's a bunch of fucking, like, kind of conspiracy theory bullshit about how the globalists were going to harness this negative energy. The thing that drove me nuts about this one is, like, it's so vague and it's so much bullshit that it doesn't even try and describe the details. And their excuse is like, it's the globalists, folks. I don't know the details. Like, it's a giant conspiracy. How would I know? But it was simultaneously saying that they were going to inject negativity along the path that they would then harness later for their evil schemes. And, like, a lot of people bought into this one.
Also known as TikTok.
I was like, holy fucking shit. So it's, like, not hard to peddle bullshit to people who just want to hear this stuff. And then my personal favorite, this one, I'm not sure if I'm saying the town name right, but it's spelled Nineveh. Nineveh is how I think it's said. There's one in Illinois.
All I'm thinking of is that character, Nineveh or whatever.
Nineveh?
Yeah.
The Nineveh theory, which this one said that it was clearly the end of days because the path of totality was going to go across 6, 7, 8, in some cases 10 or 12 cities with the same name of Nineveh. And, like, this is the one that pisses me off the most because they literally took the path of totality map. Because, like, a lot of towns that are named something, if you go to a different state, there's another one, Like, I think every state has a Springfield. That's one town that has, every state has that same town name in it. And this is no exception. Like, the Nineveh theory preyed on that. These fuckers made a map where they adjusted the path of totality so that they could get as many of those towns across multiple states into the path where it didn't even match the real path. And then they post online and they're like, see, this is fucking proof the New World Order planned this solar eclipse to align with these towns. It's like, you literally photoshopped the fucking picture and changed the path of totality. And even people that bought into that theory didn't book their Airbnbs and hotels on the bullshit path. They booked it off the one that was put forth by NASA because they still wanted to see the solar eclipse. That one annoyed the shit out of me. I was just like, you fucking pricks. So, like, when they said it was going to be, like, end times and stuff like that, part of me was like, fuck, I wish. Like, let it end.
Oh, my God.
It's just so annoying. But another one that I heard was the portals to new worlds. Like, the solar eclipse
That's
was
where
like...
we're going to see King Kong, right? We're going to take this portal into the center of the
Earth.
Earth.
That's the center of the Earth. That's different. That's a hole, really. And then there's the gravity inversion that you got to account for so you don't die. Sorry, that's like 2 Godzilla movies ago or whatever.
We
but
still need to see the new Godzilla King Kong movie.
TikTok and fucking Instagram have ruined it for me because people just record everything in a theater.
And that's why I made that joke about TikTok earlier. It's just like there's so much that gets put into there, and I'm like, I can't. It's so much content, and it's so hard to digest all of that content.
You know what? Since we do tangents on the show, I'm gonna take a quick tangent. My TikTok doesn't fucking work. People try and send me messages. People try and send me reels on TikTok. I get the notification, you've been sent a reel on TikTok. I go on there, conversation hasn't updated in months. And I was like, what the fuck is happening? And I've messaged people and asked them, like, when you've sent me stuff, like, hey, did you send me something? And they're always like, yeah, I did. I'm like, cool, it's not showing. And I refresh it, nothing happens. I reinstall the app, I do an update, nothing. So when they're saying, like, oh, they're going to take TikTok away from us, I'm like, good. Fuck TikTok. It doesn't work for me, and I hate it. So
I like TikTok.
Just want to get that off my chest.
It's got all the F1 memes.
The Portals to New Worlds theory was added to by this CERN particle collider. It's like the largest particle collider in the world that just had like this breakthrough where they were able to like measure something in a different way or sustain a reaction in a way that they hadn't before. So people decided what they've been doing is opening portals to alternate dimensions or different worlds. I think a lot of people don't understand what an alternate dimension actually is, and they think it's like a portal to another planet, and it's like, nope, those are completely different things. But this entire idea that the energy coming off of the eclipse was going to give this particle accelerator like a fucking juice, like the boost it needed to like open up this new amazing portal or multiple portals or destroy the world. That was another thing that I've heard about multiple times, so it's just like mixing a little bit of current events and science and fact with a mountain of bullshit that honestly, these things all serve to do the same thing. And that's scare people. And that's annoying because like eclipses are cool to look at and magical in some ways. And it's really fun to go and look at them. And it's just like, why would you use that to try and take control of people through fear? And then it just reminds me of the fact like, oh yeah, because human beings suck. And they always try and take control of other human beings through fear, which is annoying. It's the old Christopher Columbus thing, like, give me your food and shit, or else my God will take your son away, which is just such a fucking dick move when he knew an eclipse was coming. So it still happens. It's fucking 2024. April 9th, 2024 can confirm a bunch of these fear-peddling pieces of shit are still tossing stuff out there like that to try and convince you of stuff. I didn't see anyone selling products to protect you, which I assumed was going to come attached to these things, but realistically, they're just looking for fucking views and people watching their shit on TikTok or YouTube or whatever channel that they're watching because they want your fucking ad revenue and your viewership. And it's like, it was a event that lasted for 3 minutes that people really enjoyed. And I hope folks that get nervous about these sorts of things can look back on it and say like, well, none of that shit happened. And then keep in mind the people that told you it was going to happen, be like, so they're kind of full of shit. They're probably really full of shit, and you're just sort of like giving them the benefit of the doubt. Like, pay attention to the things that people say that just don't wind up fucking happening, because you're not going to get another total eclipse until 2026 if you live in Spain, or 2024, 2044 if you live in the US. And when that one happens, you have to go to fucking Montana or South Dakota, which no one wants to go there. So you better be really dedicated to seeing this.
I want to go to
thing.
Alaska. I would do that one.
Alaska's in 2033. I would go to Spain. I would do Spain 2026. Watch total solar eclipse, eat some paella. That'd be fucking dope. I'm down. So let's book that shit. 150 patrons. No, we stopped doing the patron goal thing a long time ago. But yeah, I think it was just a fun way to sit down and bullshit about the eclipse in a casual, fun way and give you guys a little bit of like interesting tidbits about eclipses from past and present, because I've heard so much shit about eclipses in the last day. I'm totally ready to take a 20-year break. So yeah, we hope you guys enjoyed this. Yeah.
So if you guys made it to the end of this episode, thank you for sticking with us. Hopefully it wasn't a bunch of rambling. I know we do a lot of tangents. That's really how our brains work. We're all over the place.
I'm pretty sure we used to go in a straight line until this eclipse happened, and now we're totally scattered. So not really. There's a whole lot of evidence to the contrary on that one.
Yeah, my brain is a mess of jumping everywhere and jokes that don't make sense. But if you folks would love to send us any of your stories, we do still have story time. So if you have any stories about weird stuff that did happen to you during the eclipse, or paranormal stories, true crime,
supernatural, extraterrestrial.
Please send us your stories so that
coincidental. Those are the funny ones.
So send us your stories so we can share them with the rest of the Spooky Fam, and it's always a good time. You can always support us if you guys want to. We have a Patreon, patreon.com/Scaryish podcast, and those are monthly donations that start at $1, and it really helps us a lot and keeps this podcast going. Any
and you
donations,
get it ad-free.
You can also go to ko-fi.com/Scaryish podcast, and those are one-time donations if that's a little easier for you. But we're really thankful for everybody that we have.
Yeah, indeed. And all the support that we get, whether it's financial or just people sharing the episode or just sharing feedback or just downloading it and listening to it, it really does mean the world to us. So thank you guys all for that. We sincerely appreciate you. We hope you enjoyed this episode 289 of Scaryish. And I think that's about it. So Robin, go ahead and wrap this thing up.
Keep on creeping on, and we'll talk to you guys later.
Bye-bye.